Today's video, we'll be reviewing the Festool Kapex 10-inch miter saw. This is the most expensive miter saw on the market, retailing at $1,475. There are some handy features on this saw, and all parts that operate a feature are color-coded in green, which is nice. Let's put this saw through some real testing. We'll start by looking at the functions of the saw. The trigger has two functions, allowing the blade guard to rise up and turning on the saw. The safety button on top must be pressed to allow the trigger to engage the switch turning on the saw. Next is the arbor lock, which locks the blade for changing and prevents the trigger from activating the power switch when it's locked. Here's the speed control dial from 1 to 6, and the laser line switch, which uses two lasers on either side of the blade. Next, the depth limit adjustment knob. You can move the head of the saw up or down. The tall miter latch, allowing you to cut the max vertical height on both sides of the saw. Then the slide lock knob and the head lock knob. Then the bevel lock and bevel range selector. 0 to 45 allows you to bevel 90 to 45 degrees on the left. Plus or minus 45 allows you to bevel 45 degrees in both directions. And plus or minus 47 allows you to bevel to 43 degrees on both sides. Next, the bevel adjustment knob. This is the best bevel mechanism on any saw. Then the miter lock lever and the miter stop release lever. The saw miters from 90 to 30 degrees on the right and 90 to 40 degrees on the left. Next, the upper fence locking lever. Now let's look at the motor. This is a brushed motor with a gear-driven spindle. It's a very mechanical design using blade connectors and simple electronics. Here you can see the laser button switch. Next, let's take a look at the head of the saw. Here is the laser mechanism. Here's a look at how the arbor lock works, preventing the motor spindle from rotating when engaged. The trigger blade guard lock release mechanism. And how the arbor lock prevents the trigger from engaging the switch. You can also see how the safety button prevents the trigger from engaging the switch. Okay, pretty straightforward design in the head and motor. Let's put it back together. Now let's take the back apart and look at the bevel gear system. Here is the spring lock that prevents the head from beveling. I've used a clamp to disengage it. Now you can see how the gears work. This is a cool feature and works really well. Next, let's look at the bevel plate. This is the mounting bracket that attaches to the head of the saw and the tension springs on both sides. Time to put the gears back together and hope it still works. Here's the bevel stop pin and 90-degree stop. There are also stops at 45 on both sides. This is the bevel lock finger that pushes on the tension spring when opened. Well, what do you know? It works. Let the testing begin, starting with the miter table. It's 6 thousandths out. This isn't great and will affect the vertical cut. Next, the fences. They were out 4 thousandths. This isn't good, but I'll show you how to fix them. First, we're going to test the fence and see what issues it causes. Starting with the left side test, I already squared the fence, so it's good. Next, let's cut the right test. You can see it's out by 24 thousandths. This is why it is so important to have straight and coplanar fences. Start by marking both sides of the fence with a pencil, then remove your fence. Using a machinist calibrated granite block and sandpaper, we will flatten the fence. It's important to use light pressure, even stroke, and keep the fence square to the block. Now reinstall the fence on the pencil marks. Now check the fence again using 1/1000 shim. Looks good. Now let's check the right fence again. I already squared the left to 1/1000. It's now square within 3 thousandths compared to 24 thousandths. That makes a big difference. Next, check the fences for square. We're within 1,000, so that's pretty good. Now reinstall the upper fences and check for square. They are a little over 1,000 out. This isn't too bad, especially for tall fences. Next, the rails. They're looking good and the head slides smoothly. Now head deflection. Within 25 thousandths for a 10-inch saw isn't too bad. This is one of the main design issues with miter saws. Parallel head test. This is an important test and a big issue with a lot of saws. Within a couple thousandths is pretty good. Time for the vertical 90-degree test. Left side looks good. Let's see what happens to the right since we know the base isn't flat. Right side. 3 thousandths out and 3.5 inches. This is why it's really important to have a flat miter table. Time for the 45-degree test. Cutting 45s on both sides of the saw, gluing them together, and checking 90 degrees. It's within 1/1000th, not bad. The last test will be a 65-25 splayed octagon cut flat using the miter and bevel with standard 5¼ inch crown. Okay, that was a lot. So, what do I think about the saw? Obviously, it's not a perfect saw, and with a price tag of $14.75, it probably should be. But when it comes to the 4 most important tests, head movement, parallel tracking, straight and square fences, and the miter plate accuracy, it's definitely in the top of the saws. It has the best bevel adjustment of any saw. The 90 and 45-degree bevel stops work, but are designed to be used gently, and with too much force can go out of registration. Now, the elephant in the room, the motor. I've heard many people say they've had issues with the motor burning up. I've also talked with several people who told me they personally spoke with Festool behind closed doors, and Festool admitted they had an issue and are trying to fix it. When I attempted to ask Festool about the issue, speaking to managers and their head technician, they claim there has never been any issues with the motor, and the head technician stated he has seen no issue with the motor or any pattern of repairs indicating a motor issue. Now, I don't know what is really happening, but after talking to them, I find it hard to believe Festool. Now, I know this might make it hard to make a decision, but I'm just trying to give you the facts. From a miter saw perspective, it is one of the most accurate saws available and has some very handy features. Whether it's worth $1,475 is up to you. Thanks for watching, and please hit that like and subscribe button. I make these videos for you to share what I've learned in hopes that it helps you on your project. Liking and subscribing helps me make these videos. So hit those buttons, and I'll see you next time.